Hi everybody! I want to spend a few minutes talking about those two different types of writing that we're exploring this week, genre fiction and literary fiction. Alright, I'm going to hold up a couple books. If I hold up this book, what do you think this might be? We've got The Lady in Distress, The Captive Embrace, gaudy colors, all that good stuff. And in the back it says The Perfect Lover, right? Do we think that would be genre, or do we think it would be literary? Then we look on this other side, and we've got this guy right here. We have Ernest Hemingway. We've got a fairly somber cover for When the Bell Tolls. And on the back, we're talking about like this really challenging travel story. A lot of war going on in this one. We have another example. This guy's got the dragon on the cover. Terry Pratchett, Sir Terry Pratchett. Guards, guards. And on the back it's telling us stuff like humorously entertaining, subtly thought-provoking, that kind of stuff. And then we look over here, we've got this one called Middlesex. And on the back it's saying stuff like expansive and radiantly generous, deliciously and deliriously American, that kind of stuff. So we have two different approaches to writing, it seems, for this discussion. We've got the more fun, flamboyant, colorful kind of books, and we have, I'm not going to use the word boring, but more straightforward, more somber kind of stories. And that's a very bad way to think about the difference between genre and literary fiction. What it is there's a division in the writing world between serious writing and non-serious writing, and often genre writing is classified as non-serious writing because it is those trashy romance novels, those hard-boiled detective novels, those fantasy novels that are really popular, the vampire novels that are super popular with young adults right now, wizards and that kind of stuff, are all considered genre fiction. And I'm going to clarify, it doesn't have to have magic and that kind of stuff in it. Sorry about my rings. It's that fun escapism is another way to think about it. Now on the other side we have our literary fiction, and typically literary fiction is grounded in reality. These are stories that can and often do happen. That's not to say that, you know, if you love high romances, that you're not going to go off and find your knight in shining armor. But literally you probably are not going to go find a knight in shining armor. But that's the general difference between genre and literary fiction. Genre fiction we read to escape. Literary fiction we read to experience. That's very general terms, and I'm not disparaging either. I'm a huge fan of both. And if you watch my other video, you know already I love trashy romance novels. The misconception that happens with critics in particular, and sometimes with students of our field, is that classification of genre as translating to bad or trash. I use the term trashy romance novel in a cheeky way because I love it, and I have spent many hours reading and writing romance fiction, and I find it to be a very valid form of entertainment and a very valid and serious way of writing. Some people who love literary fiction may disagree, and some people who read genre fiction may find the literary fiction as high and pretentious and boring. What it comes down to is genre fiction is plot driven, usually as a form of escape. And that's not to say that what is in genre fiction, say for example Game of Thrones, that it's fluffy and fun and romantic. Genre fiction can be traumatic and trying and scary. I mean, horror novels can be genre fiction. If we look at the stories of George R.R. Martin, how much death and sadness and loss is in there, and that's an interesting way for us to want to escape. But there's a whole bunch of psychological reasons why we're drawn to that. Genre fiction is typically used to escape reality. Literary fiction is typically used to experience and study reality. And that's the primary difference between the two. We escape reality through genre fiction writing by pursuing a plot. It's usually plot driven. Literary fiction, on the other hand, is more character driven. We experience through the characters not necessarily through the action. Typically, we'll fall back on our trashy romance novels. You'll have a bunch of adventure out there. Nice, in-depth romantic story, a lot of conflict. In literary fiction, you can have all of that, the emotional experience, the action, everything, with one character sitting at a bar. And that's the difference. Genre fiction will take you worlds away. Literary fiction will take you internally and focus on life. What you like is up to you. There's no such thing as bad fiction. There's bad writing. And sometimes we're all guilty of bad writing. Even the greats are. Stephen King has written bad stories and has written bad drafts. Even Ernest Hemingway has written bad stuff. But neither faction of fiction is inherently bad. If you want to be a romance novelist, if you want to write the next great horror young adult wizarding something, young adult's not my forte, you can, and it's valid. Genre fiction is valid, and it's amazing, and it brings so much experience and joy and all the other reasons why we read things to millions and millions of people. But if you want to write literary fiction, there's nothing bad about that either. It's not pretentious necessarily. It's not highborn necessarily. It's not boring. And if it is boring, then maybe we need to talk about our techniques for writing. But I guess what my point is there's no such thing as a bad genre of fiction. Whatever you want to write is what you want to write, and you're going to do it great. Because we're writing literary fiction in this class, we are going to focus on literary as opposed to genre. So we're not going to really go off on those high sea adventures with our heaving bosoms, ladies in distress. We're not going to go off to wizarding school. We're not going to go off and, find where the hobbits are. We are going to focus on more literary stories, it doesn't have to be contemporary, that's a misconception, but it has to be character driven as opposed to plot driven. And that might seem scary and big and frustrating at first, but we'll go through all the steps, the character, point of view, setting, tone, everything to help you create an amazing story. So, do you have a preference? Do you think genre fiction writing is better than literary fiction? If so, what do you prefer? Are you a big, huge fan of trashy romance novels? Maybe you love the work of Sir Terry Pratchett, and if you've never read him, you really should. He's amazing. Maybe you prefer Hemingway or books like Middlesex or something like that. What do you like to write? Because even if we're writing literary fiction for this class, what we learn here can be translated into whatever genre writing we want to do. So, in a nutshell, I'm going to say that a lot. In a nutshell, we want to approach genre fiction as plot-driven and literary fiction as character-driven. Both are great, both are valid, and both give writers purpose. So, let's hit the discussion boards. Let's talk this out. It's going to be a great conversation.